We've got a bit of a different format today. A couple of people with different businesses. We want to kind of go through a workshop of backgrounds, progress of the last 90 days, and then also some strategy in the future.
We launched our business on the 21st of Jan, so it's probably about 45 odd days. So it's still pretty new. We were able to create an ad, launch, and within less than 48 hours, generate a $500 sale.
And we actually launched just before Black Friday, and we had a pretty good first month in December.
And now we're doing it for over 1,000 because we're going to get over 30K this month.
What do you think the biggest blocker is right now currently in terms of preventing you to continue growing and scaling at the same rate, if not faster?
We're both running full-time jobs, and then trying to do creatives, I think, is a big roadblock.
The biggest blocker to us kind of moving and kind of focusing on that full time is probably supplier.
What do you think you've captured the most value from as far as like the experience working with the team?
There's three kinds of mentors. There's a person who heard about it in a book, there's a person who witnessed it, and then there's a person who's done it. This is where the value.
It just inspires you to come along to those places and just be in a room with a whole heap of other people doing the same thing on the same journey.
Both of you have had out of the gate wins, and that's like very good, but it doesn't force you to really scrutinize and look at what it is that worked and why it worked. Eddie, give us a quick wrap of the last 3 months for yourself, and then if you could share a little bit about what you were doing before you've been building Mint and Parsley.
Okay, so we launched our business on the 21st of Jan, so it's probably about 45 odd days. So it's still pretty new. So before that, and still now, I'm a professional photographer. We take pictures of products and people, and that's what we've done for the past 25 years. And we have taken pictures of lots of other people's products. And I've always been going, you know what, we need to create our own product and something. And one of the biggest things our biggest stumbling block was, what is it that we do? And this is where Ecom Capital kind of stepped in, and, you know, they gave us a roadmap to be able to work out what it was that we were going to sell. So we'll ask ourselves the questions to go, okay, well, do we go this way? Do we go this way? And we ended up in cooking, which is ironically enough where I started 30-something years ago. So, you know, hospitality and cooking in kitchens paid for me to become a photographer. And now, 25 years later, I've gone back into the kitchen.
Dude, that's crazy. I didn't know that full circle that you went through. Wow, interesting. So when you started, you had no concept of what you wanted to sell. It was full blown, just like, let's figure it out.
Look, we've been involved in various business over the years, and there were certain things that I wanted, and there were certain like non-negotiables, so on. A high ticket item is something that we kind of go, okay, this is a non-negotiable. We don't want to be pissing around with, you know, this is a $20 item and I've got to sell 50,000 of them to make $100. You know what I mean? So we wanted a high ticket item. We wanted something that had a recurring back end, i.e. kind of a subscription-based situation. That's probably something that we'll come up with down the track. I think for the time being, getting some runs on the board by selling something online and learning how to do all of that was the more important thing to do up front than to try and navigate that and subscriptions and all the rest of it.
What part of your previous experience do you think helped you the most in terms of?
All of it. The thing is that we've run meta ads before. We've dealt with suppliers overseas. You know, we've dealt with stuff. We've like 25 years in business. You need a lot of, you know, you got a lot of scabs on your knee. There's a lot of experience. And we could have done this without the help of Ecom Capital. It just would have taken that much longer.
Right.
Do you know? Right. So for me, it's like, you know, we kind of looked at it as, you know what, if I'm buying a business and that business has systems and processes and things like that. We've sold business before, and that's what we sold. You know what I mean? This is how you do this. If you do A, B, and C, you get a cake. So we could work it out as we went along, or we could go, okay, well, let's leverage on someone who's done it before and buy ourselves some time rather than stick around for 2 years.
But I don't think it's just time. You also like just thinking about this. You would have probably also spent more money, much more. Like in the
yeah.
So I think it's time and money. They go together. But just thinking about it, you probably would have invested much more just based on our own.
Time for me, time is more important than money.
100%.
Money comes time. You know, I can stick around for 2 years to get to where I am now, or I can take a shortcut and go, here's a recipe to bake a cake. I'll bake a fucking cake.
How did you find it going through the process, Eddie? Like with your background and the business acumen that you've developed, was it kind of just like pretty self-explanatory? Like the pace that you moved through things, it seemed pretty quick. So from my view of how I saw you kind of navigate through all of the steps inside of the mastermind, I know specifically, it seemed like you were just like, yep, got it, yep, got it, yep, got it, yep, got it. Like it wasn't as if you were kind of like having to discover what, like you said, meta ads are, and then discover cash flow, and then discover, it's kind of like, okay, cash flow here, meta ads here, kind of the same process. Like it seemed like it was pretty fast for you.
Yes, it was fast, but again, that comes from experience. And, you know, I mean, I'd like to think I'm involved in the ecom community, you know, a bit, and I'm on a lot of calls and whatever. And I'm seeing a lot of people have different personalities, and some people's personalities work really slow and whatever. You know, my personality is I want things done. I want it done yesterday, and I'm just going to do it. And there's no, there's not a negotiation. Having business experience, look, you don't need business experience to do this, but it helps. And I mean, if you are a person who's always been a technician who's worked for somebody else and always kind of had a 9 to 5 and so on, and now all of a sudden you've got to deal with a supplier, never mind the Chinese supplier who has their own different terms and terminology and language barrier and, you know, all of the things that are involved in running a business. A steep learning curve.
Yeah, it's that, it's like figuring out what, like the alphabet while trying to learn to talk at the same time. And you're like, I don't even know what letter that is. And someone's speaking at you in some different like noise that you're hearing for the first time. You're like, wait, what? It can be very challenging. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to whatever, but I mean, if you've run a business for any period of time, you've eaten a few shit sandwiches. You know what I mean? Like, but the longer you do it and the more seasoned you get, a shit sandwich is just a small hors d'oeuvre. You know what I mean? Like you just put it on and do it.
What do you think you've like captured the most value from as far as like the experience working with the team? I think you're working with Sarah, I believe now, but what do you think some of the standout like pieces that have been most helpful for you that you've really been like, this has really accelerated my results?
Genuinely, I think the time I spend with Ammon most morning, like, is probably the most valuable.
Nice.
Because it is, I mean, me and Hammond have developed a relationship, and, you know, we kind of get each other. Yeah. And, yes, you know, I'm not afraid to ask him questions or challenge his thinking, and he challenges back. And I mean, look, all of the account managers that we've had have been great. Yesterday we changed from Sarah to Steve, because we're now at a stage where we're going to scale. And Steve is great. You know what I mean? So there's a little bits and pieces that we've picked up along the way that have really kind of cut down time and money.
The interesting thing, it's funny, those morning huddles, I remember 2 years ago, perhaps 2.5 years ago, I was doing those meetings every morning. And I first started doing it because we run it across the company, right? We have all of the different departments having their morning huddles to kick off the day, accountability, drive performance. And I was like, I wonder how this would be if the clients had this experience. And so like for a period of like a few months, I started running it, and I was like, okay, we've got it. We've got this rhythm happening. People are jumping on, very focused and driven around the day, unblocking any kind of constraints for the morning. And it started to get some good feedback. And then Hammond came in as like one of the coaches, and we started integrating him into the group calls. And then I was like, Hammond, next week, you're taking the morning huddles. And he was like,
yes.
What? And I just threw the guy in there, and he was like, got it, grabbed it, and he's been in there and smashing it ever since. It's fantastic. It's very good.
Yeah, but keep in mind, like I'm coming from like a background of just business doing actions rather than, let's say, coaching particularly. So it's like more business management, running the ads, doing the action. So I was coming in again in the coaching program. I'm not coming to just like essentially teach things that I've heard before. It was more of things that I'm doing. So I think that's probably the easiest path for us to get you guys fast success. It's actually just having exactly like we did this before. And that's, I think, the biggest delta in terms of
want to listen to. That's the person you want to listen to. So there's three, There's three kinds of mentors. There's a person who heard about it in a book, who's never actually done it. There's a person who witnessed it. And then there's a person who's done it. The person who's done it is the person you want to listen to. And this is where the value.
Yes, I remember you attended my call and you saw like the ad account with $1 million. And it was like,
you got the screenshot of that. And like, that's, I mean, why wouldn't you take a screenshot of that? How often an ad account with $1 million in it that then generated 1 point?
It's actually generated 2.4 million, just that you're aware. It doesn't track everything, but yeah.
Nick,
and the
Jess,
owners were there in the call as well, looking at their own ad accounts.
Nice, love it. Nick, Jess, can you share a little bit about last 90 days for you guys, and then also a little bit of the previous experience, maybe background before you started the business that you now have as well?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so Jess and I started this business. So we're on the journey since about July. Then we actually launched just before Black Friday. We had a pretty good first month in December with some pretty good, strong growth, especially over Christmas and things like that. Things sort of tapered off a little bit over January. And then coming back into March, we've had some really good, strong growth again. So, yeah, it's really, really, really exciting for both of us at the moment.
Love it. Very good. What were some of the most exciting parts over the last 3 months where you've had this more explosive kind of growth that's like, whoa, this is fast? Like, what are some of the standouts for both of you?
Well, I don't have Shopify on my phone, so Nick gets the notifications and then he sends it through to me, which I love getting text messages saying, two more.
He's
So
like
that's
the
always
mediator.
a highlight. Yeah. And we have been celebrating our wins as well. Like last month, we had a goal of 20K, which worked out to be about $750 a day-ish. And so every time we got to $750, we'd take a photo of wherever we were to say, like, we're doing this, but we've made this money. Yeah. And now we're doing it for over 1,000 because we're going to get over 30K this month. So celebrating the little wins have been really good along the way.
Yeah, love that. And so you guys have like a library of different moments where you've taken photos in different.
I've got a folder saved, ready to. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Maybe at the end of the year, just put it all in one video or something.
That's incredible. I love that idea. I think that more people need to do that because you don't. I went back through my whole library. My social girls like, I need some old photos of you. And I went back through my old library. Like, geez, it must have been last week, and I was like, looked through like 10 years of random moments that I just captured through like different, and I'm like, wow, I wish I did more of this. And like, you know what I mean? Like froze those little moments in time. This is such a fantastic idea. I love that. It's excellent. Yeah.
We've always seen that you can, like, it's good to celebrate the wins, even if they're small, and you don't have to pay a lot of money to do it. It doesn't always have to be like, oh, we'll go out for a dinner or something like that. So, and we're obviously building the online business to be able to be anywhere and be making money. And that's why we were like, well, wherever we are, like I've taken a picture on the plane, I've been in a car driving somewhere in the middle of the bush, like, so,
I love that.
Yeah, it's been really good.
What would you say from your view has been the most helpful as far as working with the team over the last, particularly in this last 90 days, like I guess the whole 6 month period, you guys did July until now, so 6 to 8 months. What would you say you found most helpful in terms of like getting the results that you guys have reached?
I think sometimes it's turning up to your workshops that you have on the weekends. So, we came to the one before Black Friday, and just attending them over the last few months really sort of sinks it back in again, and it really sort of makes you hold accountable. You guys get up on stage and talk about a lot of different things, and you go, hang on a second, I'm not actually doing that. We need to start implementing that. I just really find it's held us accountable to what we're actually doing.
Yeah,
so,
and it fills your cup up a little bit as well.
Yeah, it just inspires you to come along to those places and just be in a room with a whole heap of other people doing the same thing on the same journey. And we're really a lot from those weekends.
And Hammond, I have to agree with Eddie.
Always, and then
Hammond is also the one that holds me accountable. He knows when I have stopped doing creatives for 2 days. He's very switched on, and you know what's going on. So
okay, we need to do creatives. That's the thing. Every time I see I actually just I think you attended one of the calls. I was not aware that you took some days off, and I was like, well, what's happening? I see like what's happening in your ad account. We don't have enough creatives. And it was like, oh, right. This is the only time I took actually 2 days off. I'm like, okay. I was not even aware of that. So I was just looking at your ad account kind of pace. And the moment I see kind of a declining level of creatives, then I know that something is off. So that's kind of my parameter.
Yeah. So yeah, Hammond holds us accountable. We're in nurture, so we don't have the other coaches. So we just literally have Hammond and the calls that we go on the calendar, and I just try jump on all of them. And if I've missed them, I'll rewatch them.
I think the one similarity between both of like yourself, Nick, and Jess, and then also Eddie is like there are not many calls that I hop on that both of you guys are not on. You know, and so Eddie's just there hanging out, and God, the dude's always just like, you know, contributing, adding value, grabbing a few things, God knows, maybe screenshotting a few things in the background. But it's like, and I think there's something to that, because I find that the more that you immerse yourself in the business and the growth and the environment and kind of the opportunities, I just think of it as information that you're receiving, and it's kind of aligned with the goal that you have, right? And if you don't kind of immerse yourself in information and kind of just exposure to strategy that's aligned with that goal, your attention will get placed onto different things that have no kind of correlation to your business. And then you're like, oh, I'm just not motivated. Oh, I'm not really too interested. And it kind of gradually declines. So I look at that as a huge contributing factor to both of your success, in terms of just being really focused on being like, let's be consistent. Let's show up on those meetings, ask the difficult questions, process through the issues, and then just action and implement on the back end.
Yeah, I've always gone by saying, you know, it's 80% commitment, 20% knowledge. You know, if you commit, things are always going to change over a long period of time. You know, you don't have that much knowledge. You just got to commit to keep doing it.
Yeah. And one of our sorry, you go.
Sorry. No, you go.
I was just going to say, one of the things that we always say to each other is nothing changes if nothing changes. So you've got to make that change to actually be able to see something happen.
Yeah.
The one thing that I actually noticed, I just wanted to say this, is that most of business owners, they have this like excitement when things are working, and then they actually not working on the business when they need to work on the business. So for example, you have a declining performance, you're kind of like not motivated to do the actions because you're losing money, while you should be the most motivated, I would say, or actionable in that time. So every time I see a business owner that's kind of having a bad performance, they're not excited, or they're not working on the things they should be working on just because the business is not performing, while they should be kind of working more. So this is kind of the delta that I try to focus on all the time, because I know that when you don't have good results, you're not necessarily thinking about doing the creatives. It's going to be the boring thing. It's going to be like, I don't want to do this. I want to more observe this loss, which doesn't make sense either way. And kind of like you're more obsessed about the bad thing rather than looking at the good thing that could solve the bad thing. So that's my view on it.
Just a question in terms of Nick and Jess, because I'm just curious about the dynamic between the two of you. Has it been helpful to be, you know, having the relationship? Has it been challenging sometimes? You know what I mean? Like, do both of you guys like drive different departments or different areas of the business? I'd just like to know a little bit about that. That's interesting.
Yep. I do the creatives and talking to the suppliers, all that sort of stuff.
And and I've sort of set everything up. So we're just sort of transitioned into a company. So I sort of look after all the books, all the insurance, all those types of things, and put everything together, making sure we're sort of on track with our finances, work out how we can scale up with what amount of money we've actually got in the background. So yeah, I sort of take care of those things on that back end.
Good, nice. Has that been helpful, having that kind of different skill sets in different areas?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We always bounce everything off each other. You know, Jess is always saying, hey, what about this creative? And, you know, we're always both searching on Instagram or Facebook or whatever for the sort of latest trends and sending stuff to each other. You know, we're constantly communicating every single day. So, yeah.
Good. I like that a lot.
Now, Eddie, where is your partner? Eddie is actually, like, your partner also is contributing to your business. Where is she?
So Faraz doing Saturday things today, but Farah and I have worked together in our businesses since 2007. So it's a long time. And I mean, our philosophy is divide and conquer, you know, And, not long ago, a business that we recently sold was a portrait business. And when I was trying to be in both the portrait and the commercial, it would be complicated. And when she was trying to do both, same thing. So she was all in the portrait, I was in the commercial, and we did well. You know what I mean? So, and now, I'm doing a lot of the bits and pieces and showing up to meetings, but she's there in the background for all decisions and all conversations. And like running a business is hard. All of a sudden you've got somebody who's on your team who is there to kind of champion each other on, just makes it a little bit easier.
So that took a good 2 years of convincing. So she had her e-commerce business. We started that kind of together, and then she took off with that and ran with it. She initially wanted to build that business to, she's like, I wanted to build this for you so that you could not work. And I'm like, that is never going to happen. I'm like, what?
Maybe she had the same as me, that you get complaints about having to drive and sit in traffic. And you just don't want to hear it anymore. So let's just get it sorted so you don't have to keep working.
That's how it started. And then she took off with the business. Within 6 months, we were in negotiations with this Mad Paws company to buy the whole business. And I remember going through that, and I was like, I've had 2-3 businesses now by that time, and she's started her first business. She's just running this thing. She's just having the best time. And she was she's always been incredibly good at, and she's still to this day is probably one of the best people that I know at this, identifying the things that generate the most income and just exploiting the hell out of those things, and then just avoiding anything else. She's very lazy with the things that don't need to be done, right? And that Pursue business, that business is actively scaling right now. She works on that business, I kid you not, 90 minutes a week. And we're doing 60 grand a month. We'll be back up to 100 grand a month very soon. There is almost it runs on oxygen and maybe a little it is insane. And then she'll come into the Ecom Capital company. She'll just ruthlessly spend some time allocating into some areas, whether it's content, whether it's strategy, whether it's direction, and then it'll just make explosive kind of movements. So she's very, very good at that. But as far as the initial kind of start of where it all came together, she was I want to help you. And then after the Sash Beds company grew to a certain level, I'm look, you've exited it. This other company owns it officially now. You're working hard for this other company. And the things that when she started working in the Mad Paws business, there was a meeting that she had, right? And she's like, I have to go and report in front of the whole company and do an all hands meeting, right? And present this is what we're doing. This is how we've done things. And she was like, if I knew that I had to do these meetings, I would have never sold the business. She's like, I fucking hate it. I can't stand it. This is the worst thing and then, a year or two later, I was just speaking to her. I'm like, babe, look, look what you're doing there. You're working very hard. You can do the same thing in this company. We can help people. We can build an amazing company together. And then eventually, after much convincing, she was like, yeah, okay, let's rock and roll. And so she's been in Ecom Capital for about 2.5 years now. Now, the question, I have 2 questions for Nick and Jess and also for Eddie. So number one is, what's the goal of the company that you're building? That's the first question that I'd like to kind of ask to you guys individually and have that thought. What is the outcome you're optimizing for in terms of what are you building the business for? And then the second question I'd like to ask each of you before Hammond and I go into what we believe is, what do you think the biggest blocker is right now currently in terms of preventing you to continue growing and scaling at the same rate, if not faster? So Nick and Jess, do you guys want to go first? What is the goal? What are you building the business for? What's the outcome? And then also, what do you think at the moment is the biggest blocker that you have to fix in the business in order to get that growth?
For us, we just wanted to, we've always put a lot of energy into working for other people. And a lot of the time it's not actually, you don't feel like it's appreciated. You put so much energy in, but you don't really sort of get anywhere. So that's why we decided to do our own business, so we can actually put all that good energy that we actually have into it and create our own lifestyle. We love to travel and be in different places. So an online business was pretty much ideal for that sort of purpose. You know, we can get it set up. We're not probably quite at that stage yet, but once we get everything into maybe third-party fulfillment and things like that, you know, we can have this business anywhere we want in the world. You know, we can travel around, just have that flexibility and freedom. We've got that choice to wake up in the morning, go to the beach, have a coffee. You know, it's all on our own time, and that's what we're trying to develop for both of us.
So very much a full-blown like lifestyle and cash flow business.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's very good. I love that. Now, what do you think is the biggest blocker at the moment between where you are right now and then getting to? Do you know what the number is that the business needs to do to be able to actually get that lifestyle that you guys want?
Yeah, it's probably around that 1.5 to 2 will give us a pretty good lifestyle.
1.5 to 2 million a year.
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
1.5 to 2 million a year. Yep.
Got it. Okay. And so what do you think at the moment is the biggest blocker that you need to solve that will help to get closer to that 1.5, 2 million?
Well, we're both running full-time jobs. So running full-time jobs and then trying to do creatives, I think, is a big roadblock. But it's a hard thing to make that transition from working and stepping into the business. So just due to a couple of commitments that we already have, that's probably the biggest roadblock I can see at this point in time.
That and
Jess?
Staying on top of stock as well.
Yeah, stock, yep.
Okay, cool. So stock and then the time component as far as time allocation between what you're currently doing versus the business. Eddie, what do you think? What's the outcome you're optimizing for with the company? And then what's the blocker?
So ideally what we're looking to achieve with Mint and Parsley is something that's going to see us into retirement. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty close to 50, so is my wife. And, you know, like I love being a photographer. It's a great job. You know, it's been very good to me, but it's a hard gig. You know what I mean? Like I'm basically a roadie. You know what I mean? There's bags and cases, and it's physically demanding. I'm not in a mine digging holes all on site, but you know, a roadie is pretty physically demanding job. And I love the idea that we can do this from home. You know, that's something that I really enjoy. You know what I mean? Like I've done a lot of client facing, like everything I've ever done, hospitality to photography, has all been client. I'm good there, but I also like the idea of just being in front of a computer anywhere, and I can just run it from wherever I need. And you know, the fact that you know we have the skills to be able to shoot content, that's great bonus. It's a great bonus. So yeah, that's that. And honestly, the biggest blocker to us kind of moving and kind of focusing on that full time is probably supplier for now. If I had to answer that question right now today, you know, the supplier that we've got is good, but could be better. You know what I mean? Other than that, and I mean, that's not a big problem to solve. You know, there are other suppliers. We are in conversation with other suppliers who have sent us a sample who is pretty good. So, I mean, I think that it's just going to take a little bit of time to kind of fine tune those few bits and pieces and really just ramp up and scale up, you know, meta ads and all the other bits and pieces that we need to. That's really the only thing that I'm, you know.
Got it. Hammond, your view on the two businesses that we have here in terms of the one thing, before we get into the strategy component, the reason I asked the question in terms of what you're building for is because don't forget that if it is the purpose of building the business to maximize cash flow and create lifestyle, build for that design. Does that make sense? Because what happens so often, and I see this all the time, massive revenue hikes, costs through the roof, building a business because you want to beat last month's revenue and profit is like zero. Like there is a lot of businesses that I'm heavily involved in that I see growing month on month that I'm just like, good God, like didn't you start this to have more cash so you could, you know, spend some more time doing some stuff? And now you're just like, obsessed with the next revenue number at the cost of like everything else, you know? And so I think the reason I cited before the situation with the Bissou company and Nehru doing this, I said directly to her when she was building that company, this time around, I said, what I want you to be very aware of is there's a certain like tipping point of complexity where the business reaches more complexity and that it actually uses more resources to continue growing. Every business has that moment, whether it's a certain headcount, right? There's what's that law that there's a certain 150 it is, but there's a certain number of headcount where the business complexity multiplies, skews in your business multiplies, complexity multiplies, revenues. And so what I really want to encourage you guys to do, if that is the goal, right, you're starting with this in mind. And the thing is, it may change as the business evolves and you might be like, I want to get more for more's sake. But I think like along the journey, you will often like find yourself questioning what am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? And very bluntly and transparently, if you're paying yourself a good wage out of your business and you actually have a good solid income, it takes care of a lot of those, what am I doing it for? You know? And if you've got no income coming out of your business because you're all just folding it back in over and over and over again, you're not really achieving the lifestyle side of things, and then you're like going through some challenging months and times. You're like, what's the point of this thing again? You know, and so I think being really painfully aware of like, okay, so I need to get to 100 grand a month, or I need to get to 150 grand a month. If I find the complexity really starting to compound at 120, I'm going to look at leaning this thing out as much as I can, simplify. And this is what I said on the coaching call last week, where with AI at the moment, God, it is one of the best times to be able to doing this exact thing, building like a lifestyle cash flow focused business that you guys can set up and run to be able to pay yourself $10, $20, $30, $40,000 a month within 6 to 8 months of launching and scaling the business. I'm like, that is insane. It is absolutely insane. But I think it's very important to make sure, and I'm saying this feedback to you because I had this feedback given to me from Hormozy where he was like, what's the game that you're playing, right? Because he's like, you're trying to, ride on a certain track with, a racehorse, and then there's like greyhounds. And it's like, you need to play as per the rules of that game, right? And so it's like that. What that means is keeping costs. And I've got a full train that we're going to go through at the event. I know both of you guys are coming to the event, but based on this exact design. Those that want to build and sell and exit, this is the playbook, this is the plan. Those that want to cash flow, this is the playbook, this is the plan. These are the steps that you want to optimize for because they're very different kind of playbooks. And people that try and cross in between both of them, they end up somewhere in the middle, which is an ugly situation. You know, so I want to just make sure that, like, first things first, you guys keep that reminder close, very close to you. How big does the business need to get before it starts to get overly complex and annoying and frustrating and I'm getting pissed off and then there's not enough cash flow? Let's hold it there and let's lean this thing out to maximize the amount of margin and then pay myself as much as I can, invest in assets, build your wealth massively with this business. That is the game you're playing at the moment. And I think it's like, play the rules of that game. So we'll go a lot more into that at the event. I've got a full-blown workshop to go into those details. Hammond, what's your view on the blockers that both of the founders have here in terms of the businesses preventing them from growing?
Right, perfect. So starting with Eddie, I would actually say that based on your business, you have good margins. Like, I've looked at your business, you have good AOV. We talked about that. And this is like, from a structure perspective, you don't have any limitation. But after analyzing a lot of things, your biggest probably bottleneck is your lead time, which I think is something that you're working on. You're thinking about changing a supplier and kind of fixing that part. But that's kind of the component of the business where we will always have a limitation because your product is much heavier and you need more of that. So I would say one of the things that probably I would look at, are you maximizing for volume or are you maximizing for profit? And those two things would be what we're going to analyze. So for example, if you're looking to make 20K a month, just in terms of profit, then you can focus on, well, how can we build a structure around that without necessarily maximizing volume in terms of, let's say, sales rather than just maximizing percentage of profit, which your business is actually aligned with pretty well. The offset or kind of the risk in your business from what I've seen would be first kind of looking at, let's just dump more capital and kind of like scale this structure with a lower margin, which I think it's not going to be the best kind of component in your business. So I would think about how can we maximize profit because you have the margin. That's the positive thing about your business. The negative thing I would say would be the logistic part and the lead time. And that's by default something in your business. So the goal would be how can we max the profit of this situation and maintain it as much as possible. So that's, I would say, probably no, it's increasing your conversion rate, increasing other elements in the business. So there are other things you can optimize, not just the AOV, because your AOV is actually pretty good. I would think about how can we monetize more, so more conversion rate optimization. Considering that we talked about this in a previous session, literally in a internal like account management analysis, and there are some things that we can optimize. Obviously, it should be properly strategically positioned, but those things are what I would focus on. How can we split test properly your page? How can we extract most of the value from an audience? And how can we obviously build an automation? So I think that's the like delta in your business. The thing that's risky is actually you committing to different things, going and kind of like being distracted by let's just buy this new product and launch it, or let's say launch this new thing. So that distraction probably that I would say probably that's your biggest risk. I know that you're not doing this. I'm just saying that if I was to think about it, I've seen people in your situation where they would think, well, this is easy. I'm just going to launch another product, right?
No. So we had a small board and a big board, and right now the big board's almost sold out. We've sold almost 50 of them in 45 days. And the small board, we sold one this morning actually. We sold one small board this morning. And they are going to move, but our focus is all on the big board. And, you know, to combat that lead time situation, we're going to be ordering on a smaller batches on a much more frequent time frame, so we can have that logistical kind of, you know, like that chain operating. You know what I mean? So we're not running out of stock. But I agree with what you're saying.
Yes, I would say that's the biggest risk, just from my view on this. From let's say if I was to look at Jess and Nick and Joe.
I think, and this is for both of you guys, the risk that I see is both of you have had out of the gate wins. Okay, and so that's fantastic, and that's like very good. But it also it doesn't force you to really scrutinize and look at what it is that worked and why it worked. Does that make sense? It's like, put a product out there, threw some pieces together, shot some content, created it, looks good. And I'm like, wow, we're making some cash. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's come pretty quick. And not to say it makes you take it for granted, but as an example versus someone that's like,
struggle.
Correct. It's exactly right. Like there's been no pain and like suffering of like, try this offer, try this offer, try this offer, boom. You know what I mean? Both of you guys essentially have put the first product, presented it. Oh, wow. It's like 10 grand, then 20 grand. Geez, that's been really quite good. It's been well received by the market. And then to the point that Hammer mentioned around, like to Eddie's business as an example. So some of the fundamental metrics, we spoke about this in terms of your frequency versus ROAS, right? You have very low frequency, 1 to 2 frequency, etc. And then people are still purchasing impulse buys of $500 to $600 product. And so this naturally has you go, well, it's fine. Like, why would I focus on it? But it's like, if we look at the, like strip all of the product out of the situation and just think in kind of like a continuum, would it be fair to say that if a product is more expensive, people need to see it more times? Yes. Okay, cool. So then if that is the case, and I'm having this good performance right now with the first couple of ads that I'm using and launching, and I'm almost ignoring the metric because it's working well, because I didn't really need to do anything to get it, and it's just like crushing ROAS, great margin, then would it be fair to say that if I increased the frequency and had more content to kind of indoctrinate those people even more, I could potentially drive my ROAS from what it is now, 4 or 5, up to like 8 or 9 without too much difficulty at all? You know what I mean? And so both of you guys will have these situations whereby, because of that quick moving success and that quick moving result, it'll have you potentially gloss over some items or some numbers or some metrics in your businesses that might otherwise have been scrutinized, but it's like it's come quite quick. So it's like, okay. So I think for Eddie, similar to the point that Hammer mentioned, focus. I think, this is very much the blocker of all businesses in 20 to 30 up to 100. it's a dilution of focus because you get a little bit of a spring in your step, as if like, yep, cool, we're doing it. We're growing fast, and now we can just expand and do new SKUs, and we can do new markets and all of this crazy stuff, when really it should be deep over broad all the time. And it should be, how can I penetrate this so damn well? Like I said, both of you guys have, launched and had great results. But it's like, what was it specifically that generated the result? Was it the offer? Was it the pricing? Was it the comparison in the pricing? Was it the ads? Which ads? Was it the offer? Which offer? Like, why did we generate this result that is categorically quite unique in most businesses launching, right? Because what happens as you multiply and continue scaling, this is for both of you, right? It will continue to demand more reasoning as to why. You'll get to 100 grand, you'll get to 150 grand, and you'll have some issues. And you want to have a playbook to revert back to go, when this happens, then that. When this pricing, then drop that. When this offer, then drop this offer, right? And so, like I said, because it's come quick, there hasn't been a need for that real strong drilling into each of those knowledge points. So like with Eddie, for example, like I said, that frequency component, I immediately go to the point, it's like, well, it's good, so why really focus on it? But it's like, well, it's good with first-time impulse buyers. What happens is you scale budgets. You scale budgets into more and more colder audiences. Then what? You're probably not going to have the same level of like impulse purchases of people who need more indoctrination. And so beginning to look at that now, okay, and then we want to increase average order value, and then we want to increase like multiple purchases, etc. We want to really think about, how could I create this like pockets of content that can service people first time, second time, third time, and have them be completely exposed to every touch point, every objection, every point that they might think of. Is it a good product? Oh, I don't really know. It looks a little bit cheap. Oh, I don't really know. Does it seem like it's worth that? All of those things we can build into that funnel and target those people. And as you scale up, it's going to talk to those kind of colder audiences more and more and more and more. So I think stock from a supply and demand perspective, demand right now, if you had, 500 boards, you would triple your ad spend. So I think hyper concentration on stock is a huge, very important, probably the most important lever for you right now. And I think also there's so much proof now that every month that you are out of stock, and I would be consciously thinking about it through the lens and quantifying the loss. How much are you losing? How much is your conversion rate dropping? What is it costing me to not have stock? That lens is going to be very helpful for you. And I like this idea of like the just-in-time, almost manufacturing process, nice short cycles. But what happens every time you run out of stock and go on pre-sale, conversion rate drops, all of these things start to happen. You'll notice it, right? So I would be actively not punishing, but kind of thinking through that lens. I just lost 15 grand this month. Oh, I just lost another 7 grand this week because my stock arrived late. And start to think through that lens, because it'll actively drive yourself forward to be like, shorten this production time, shorten the lead time, keep the stock on hand, keep my conversion rate healthy. Like all of those things are going to need to be very much front of mind. The main issue at the moment, like I said, stock rotation. And then I think obsessing on the metrics that, like I said, if you think about any higher ticket product, are people going to need to see it more or less? In your case, uniquely, they're seeing it 2 times and they're buying. That's fantastic. But would it be fair to say that there's probably a bunch of those people that probably see it and don't buy, that if there was more content to absorb and speak to all of the concerns and objections?
There's still an additional one, and they'd make a decision and make a purchase.
Correct.
100%.
Precisely. That's it.
And it needs to be.
That's exactly. And so I think as you scale ad spend and scale budget, you're going to, like I said, more cold audience. They're going to see your product. They're going to be less kind of impulsive in their purchasing behavior. And then you will run into that. Why is my ROAS declining? Why is my performance declining? And it's going to be working up in that funnel and speaking to all of those objections through the content you create in your ad account. And it's similar to what we discussed in that personality-based content session on Thursday night with respect to all of the different types of people, what they need to see, how they need to see content from a thinking, decision-making, emotional perspective to be able to help that buying archetype overcome their fears and actually make the purchase. So that's my view of like current situation. I think hyper concentration on stock rotation to the point where you can full throttle to the point where you realize the complexity is challenging, and you also start to meet some of your cash flow targets as far as what you want to get out of the business. I think that's very important. And then the last thing that I think is very crucial is, as you reach those levels, say, for example, you reach 100 grand a month and you're pulling out 25 as an example, it takes discipline to hold the line. Like it is a very disciplined decision, active, conscious decision to say, I do not want to continue growing. In fact, I'm going to hold my business at 120, at 130, whatever that number might be. And we are going to fix this right here, right? And I'm going to lean this out so much so that it literally has me working 4 hours a week on the company. And if that's your target and that's your goal, and you set this thing up to be a complete machine that ticks around by itself, and you can gouge out $30,000 a month in extra cash flow, man, that is a sweet position to be in, you know. But it's a decision to be made, like at that moment, and then it's like not falling, like I said, victim to this. What's next? What's next? What's next? I have one friend in Bali, and he has a company that does about $3 or $4 million a year, and he has held his company at that level. And the guy works, I think it's like 3 or 4 hours a week at that level to produce himself up. Geez, it must be about $1.5 million in profit per year. And I'm like, I have so much respect for the fact of not falling victim to small hamster wheel, bigger hamster wheel, bigger hamster wheel, and you're just chasing the next. Exactly.
It's chosen over chasing a dream. Yeah.
Precisely.
Because if you change that goal, like, you just keep pushing it forward and forward and forward, and it gets bigger and bigger. I get it. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That's a new hamster wheel.
Yes. But I would say that, like, as I mentioned, you guys can get hit. You can get 100K pretty fast. Like, from what I've seen, all of you are getting into that level. So 100K, I don't think it's a big challenge for the business. I might be here a little bit going against what we just mentioned, but I think you guys can hit more volumes. I think probably we can extract much more. And I've seen business owners, you know, if you're planning on a year and then you make it in a month, just feels fantastic. That's my view on it. So I'm still going to be more aggressive on that. Let's scale. So that's my view on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sicko for if you can, you must. Like that's kind of my philosophy. That's why that's why I personally have, like, when I see someone actively holding their business at a certain level, I'm like this triggers the hell out of me, but I also respect it. You know what I mean? Because I'm like,
yes, because I was thinking, this is like, you're the person, like, out of all people I worked with, you're the person that I've seen take a lot of risk and kind of look at almost always the situation that we're missing on, right? Just like that next level. How can we get there? So I think that, yes, it's very challenging and you need to be very disciplined to maintain your business. But I do believe that sometimes that risk is worth taking to get to that next level, because you might not be aware of what's out there. And I think that's something I've seen.
I agree. I think it's also, though, how you wired. You know what I mean? You're wired to, like, it's, I love running a business, whether I'm selling like tissue boxes or whatever. I like the idea of that hustle. You know what I mean? And you can't just turn that shit off. Like, that's how you wired. So, you know, like, I get it. You got to optimize for lifestyle. And I think just on that, I think it just also comes down to where you are in life, what age you are. If you're in your 30s, hustle. Like, if you're 50, 60, then slow the fuck down. Like, you know, work it out. Yeah,
precisely. Hammond, what's your thoughts on Jess, Nick, the situation as far as blockers? What do you think the advice around them should be?
All right. So actually, I would say that I've noticed that this is just from a business perspective. You guys don't seem to have a lot of issues with supply chain. It seems like you're coordinating that properly. From a strategy perspective, I feel like the thing that we should focus on are the thing that actually are working rather than distraction. So I know it's very similar to what we just mentioned, but I think that expansion on products, and I think you talked about that a little bit in the past, would be something that I would be a little bit cautious about, because your structure right now is producing results. I would focus on how can we extract more of the current rather than chase, let's say, another one. That's one element. I've also seen your business, it's not optimized. Like, there are some things that you started working on right now, like optimization of the AOV, which I know it's not that high, but the goal would be do two things, in my opinion. Focus on what's working. We keep doing that, which we're doing already. And I'm keeping you in trouble. Like, we need to keep doing the creatives. We need to keep building that, because the thing that you're doing like at this level is the same thing that's going to get you to the million. It's the same thing that's going to scale to massive numbers. It's going to be focusing on it and just ignoring the sales a little bit and just keeping that continuum kind of focus around that element. The second thing would be, as Sasha mentioned, optimizing the business. We're in the early stages. We're getting data. So we should optimize the AOV. We should do the email marketing. Those are things that you never did before. Like from what I've seen in the past, those are areas that we did not navigate. If you do email marketing, AOV optimization, and you do creative optimization, let's say as kind of the main thing, you're going to get to the million. But if you do product research, analysis, and we're kind of putting the challenge back of let's launch and get the market to react to our product many times, that's going to drain capital, in my opinion, distraction, and essentially it can kill a business. And this is something I mentioned to Sasha as well. I look at what are the outcomes? What are we chasing? What is the thing that we're looking for? In your case, I would say I would look at it from that. You need to hold the line and just focus on your business and grow it without taking a lot of new bets. Yeah. You already did that. So that's kind of my feeling.
That's something that we've already kind of started this month from when we had the discussion last week. In like the AOV, for example, we've added like a post-purchase on, and we've seen a massive difference already in a week just from doing that to be able to bring that AOV up. So that's been really good. Yeah. And I'm just always going to chase sales because I've had a background of sales for 20 years. So it's always going to be in the background.
Okay, more sales. Let's get to, I think 100K. We're already doing about 12K per week, I think, give or take. So I think your business is already kind of doing 50K. So that's kind of like, we're very close to that. So I would say that 100K is pretty much programmed in the next 60 days if you keep doing what you're doing. So the thing would be, it's almost like guaranteed outcome. How about we secure it just to make sure we spend the money? Because you need to remember something you talked about, which was, to be honest, it was a little bit surprising to me that you mentioned this in a coaching session, but it was like, do we need to spend the money? Like, I feel like I'm capped at 1.5K or something, 1.4K. I think it was in a session where you mentioned that. That's logic. Like, we're running paid ads. If you don't spend the money, we're not going to get the sales. So your question was essentially, if I don't spend the money, can I still get it? Which is the answer.
It's quite funny because after that conversation, the next day we had our biggest day. We couldn't get past 1,300 and it skyrocketed to over $2,000 on the next day.
Yes. So yeah, we need to spend the money. So to think about it, like you have an element that's working and it's like driving people. That machine should just drive more people. That's how you should think about it. If you want to guarantee the outcome, you need to guarantee the input. The input is we need to spend that amount. So I think in your business, if you tell me, hey man, you're kind of the boss, you do the decisions, I'll look at, well, we need to maintain the ad spend kind of growing in that target and then just fixing the like elements that I just mentioned. If you do this, you're going to get to the million. It's programmed. So that's my promise to you, but just focus on the element.
Question. Would you say that a new product is new colors though, or is introducing new colors better because it gives more options for people to buy?
All right. So if you look at, let's say Amazon, most of the time they add more variation and it works super well. Ecom, it sometimes creates friction, in my opinion, if you add a lot of colors. I don't think it's a bad thing to have more colors. It's still an option like you should push. We have this with Bisou, by the way. Actually, Sasha worked on this a lot in terms of, and Naira as well, like in terms of introducing new things in the brand. And like it did help us to have more variation of colors. And actually, sometimes we have spike in sales when you launch a new color. So more colors is not necessarily bad. The thing that I'm saying is, like you need to control the elements that you have right now because it's working. Like the one channel thing. For example, I would not go and launch something completely new and put a lot of money in that category to then re-optimize from scratch and kind of figure out things. That's going to be a tough kind of challenge in my opinion versus maybe a new color. Yes, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, but it's going to be more around, can we fix like things in this business rather than create new complexity. And I think Sasha did this amazingly in a previous podcast. You can probably watch it where he mentioned, well, you have this spend that goes like into like a ROAS that we know, which is essentially coming back every time. So you spend like $1, you get back 2 or 3. It's really amazing. Think about it, if we spend it just disappear. Like we don't know when it's going to come back. And I think this element is what I'm afraid of most of the time. If like we spend, we don't know when it's going to come back.
There was a podcast that you guys did that you were talking about the guy who sells motorbike parts and he just kept going and that's just had the one thing. And that always we've have in the back of our mind of other things that we want to do, but I just want to extract as much as I can from towels to start with and go from there. Like I don't want to.
If I reference the Bisou example, so last, I would say 6 months, 9 months, Naira, I think there was about 6 colors that she tested. right? A whole bunch of different colors in the exact kind of like idea that you guys are having in terms of this may stimulate, this may be a new thing. Maybe they'll like this color versus that color. Mainly focused towards like the list versus new in terms of reactivating and having new people purchase. Now, when we launched those new products and those new colors rather, for the month, around 1 to 2 weeks when those emails went live, all the email campaigns, good strong spike in sales, and then it would just kind of taper back to BAU, and new traffic coming in would just continue to buy the same SKU, right? And so if I look at the two changes that happened over the last, like, I would say 9 months in that business that made the most material change, if I look at all of the color SKUs changes on this side versus offer and creatives, this thing has 2 to 3x the business. This thing has made little incremental month to month lift and drop. But nothing like, if I was to reference this and say, okay, did it change the business? Did it increase month on month consistent profitability? No, absolutely not. This, on the other hand, offer strengthening that thing, making it incredibly strong, and it cuts through. And then creatives to wrap that whole thing. Like, the performance solely has changed on a continued month to month basis, and scalability is so much higher. And we have an average order value of $57. So we've increased profit, right? Increase the average order value, but you guys have an 80 or somewhere around $80 to $90 average order value. So what the point I'm trying to make is you have really strong, much higher margin in terms of dollar value on that average order value. So the focus should be certainly around the exact same thing. How can we strengthen the offer? How can we increase that kind of creative flywheel to wrap that offer in such a strong way so that the penetration just continues to cut through? Because that's your constant scalability engine versus it's exactly what Hammond said, where you have two types of problems in your business. One problem is a deficit, that if you repair the deficit, you'll go back up to not losing money. And it's a sure thing. On the other side, you've got the possibility, which is this is business as usual, and this is the bet that you might take. This is the new product, new platform, new partnership, these types of things. You don't know, and you have no track record and no history of these things ever working, right? These things here, more often than not, will kill your business more times than they will win and pay off, right? And the most challenging from a focus and concentration perspective for founders is most of the time, these things feel really good to do because they're so fun and they're so exciting, and your dopamine and your ADHD brain goes, oh my God, I'm going to launch that color. Everything's going to change. This is it. And it reminds you of what it felt like when you started initially in the first place, and you hit that freaking 100 miles an hour only to get 2.5 weeks in and realize that business as usual is tanking. And this thing over here, fuck that, forget about it for now. I got to go and fix the burning fires. You know what I mean? And so fundamentally, it's always looking at it through that lens. Is this a repairing of a deficit? Like, as an example right now, have you squeezed the lifeline dry out of creative and offer maximization and your average order value through this back-end situation before we look at net new ideas, products, concepts, offer, all of those types of things? And that's always the philosophy. It's like, why are we doing new when what I'm currently doing is still a damn mess? So if I introduce new and then it does work into the messy system, I'm going to have more mess, more chaos, more complexity, and then more stuff that's like done at 15%, done at 25%, done at 10%, done at 30%. All of it's done like shit, and my resources are spread. I had a conversation with one of my bigger clients, and he is in multiple different markets. We had a discussion like 2 weeks ago. Multiple markets all over the place in terms of what he's doing. He's got new products launching, and I'm like, "How's your profitability?" He's like, "It's probably the worst it's ever been." Why are we doing all this new shit? Please explain.
Yeah, I would actually say something. This is like based like I was talking to you about this literally before this session, is that business owners would have like, this is like something that Jeff Bezos, he literally said that he was kind of learning as he was growing Amazon, is that every single week he had potentially 20 or 30 ideas. And he had a mentor who was telling him essentially, you're going to kill your business with every single idea you have. So your business can't absorb this. So I think that element that you just mentioned with the clients you have is that expansion level, so those new ideas, it's just they're going to kill the business.
That's exactly right. So I think, I mean, for both of you guys, that's the very real challenge that mainly comes with like success that came quite quick without having to scrutinize over certain metrics in terms of conversion or creative or offer. And so fortunately or unfortunately, it's very similar to what Hammond said. When people are up, they generally don't measure very much. When people are down and things are absolute mess, they tend to scrutinize and try and find a way to make things work, right? And so fortunately or unfortunately, both of you guys have had, good success. So naturally, you aren't going to rip into every metric of your whole business and rip it to pieces. You just won't, because there's been no need to. There's been no need to actually do that. And so it takes a lot of like discipline and almost like very trained attention to be like, look, things are good, but let me understand why. And things are good, but let me see if I could triple that number simply by putting some attention on it, because I've just had it fall into my lap and I'm accepting that it's good because of why? It just happened. Oh, yeah, let's just move on to the next thing. It's like, let me rip that thing to pieces, find out exactly why it's so good, scrutinize that thing and see if I can take it from 4x to an 8x without even trying, And I think all of you guys have that.
I don't know about not even trying, because that's you guys have set up a framework, and if you follow it, it works. Like it's not falling into your lap, because we have other ideas. And like we got on a call with Hammond and he was like, no, you can't do that because that's not going to work because of this, this and this. So the framework that Ecom has put together, and if you actually follow it and just do what's being said to do, then you're going to have that success, because you are like, do you know what I mean? Like you've set up this framework. If you do it step by step, you work through it, and you're putting all that work on the back end. When you go to launch, you're going to have a product that's actually going to work.
I agree, but I think that the majority of people who will launch, spend money on ads, and then they're sitting there and all they hear is cricket. So the fact that we were able to create an ad, launch, and within less than 48 hours generate a $500 sale, like let's not gloss over. Like yes, it's great, but still scrutinize and find out why. Because, one thing that we want to do is everyone who's bought, we're going to pick up the phone and ring them. Why did you buy? Why did you almost stop? Because understanding that, like Sash said, is going to help you get to the next stage where if you are going to scale, well, you need to know why you got to where you are. Yeah.
And this is where, like, at a more strategic macro level that you guys want to begin to build out further, you look at what's called like your there's a book, and I'll bring some special copies along to the event, and I'll give you guys a copy of this book. Vern Harnish, he has this framework, and he calls them the company's like core competencies, right? And so it's like, these are the things that our company does, and it's our products or our services, the things that we deliver, that we do the best, right? And we want to defend those things, and we want to back those things, and we want to double down on those things, and we want to drive them so hard into the market so that everybody knows, oh my goodness, Mint and Part, they are the only company you go to if you want that. Because like that's what you want to get to, right? And so it's like this concept of calling the customers and speaking to them, finding out what it is, like what are those drivers, those 2 or 3, usually 3 to 5 max things that you're like, these are our like strategic, and then you start to defend them, and you build your moat around them, and all your content is built around them. All your products is built around those things. You speak about those things in ads, like that becomes like the overarching message of like, this is what we are and this is what we are not. And it's very, very, very strong. And you get that through exactly what Eddie said, speaking to the customers, knowing all the particulars of why is this actually working so well? And then what can we do to amplify, double, triple, quadruple the results we're already seeing? I'm not trying to say like it came and fell in your lap and you guys didn't work for it. I'm just saying like, statistically speaking, the results that you've had as far as quick kind of success at this level is quite good, right? And so it's like, I just know in every single moment when I've had success happen to me in any of my businesses. It makes me fat and lazy, and I don't scrutinize and understand the specifics. And there's a blessing as much as it is a curse when you're down in the dumps and you're at the bottom of despair and you're figuring out what it needs to happen, what you need to do to win. You know what I mean? And that's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Quick success makes me nervous. You know what I mean? Because
definitely.
hit something here.
Dude, 100%.
You know what I mean? Quick success is great, but you have to go, okay, what did we do here? Because otherwise it's a fluke. Unless you can repeat it, it's a fluke. And the only way you're going to work out how to repeat it is to analyze the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And that's why when we launched it Black Friday, we were like, oh, everyone's just buying it for gifts. All Christmas and Black Friday, it's all gifts. And then we were like, is this going to continue next month?
I remember your sales going down January, and you were like, hey, I'm stressed, my sales are going down, I don't know what to do, like, you know, we're not essentially doing creatives, right? So I think knowing those things would be the thing to focus on. Now you know that you can do creatives. Now that's the way you learn more about fixing your business and kind of improving it. And at every level, you're going to have a different challenge. 0 to 100K, there are like some specific challenges. Most of the time, profitability, creatives, limitation, structure, and avatar. When you get to 100 to 500K, we have new problems. They're coming in and we need to fix those. So every single level, there are new things that I've seen with business owners kind of facing. And I know you're in the coaching and you're getting support and we're kind of helping you navigate those things. But that's the thing you should focus on. Every time there will be a new challenge and you need to learn about how to unlock that level. So that's kind of my view on this particularly.
Yeah. I mean, it's been 90 days, right? And we're just gathering all the intel right now so we can see what the changes have been made and what changes that we do over the time. So we can take note of that and then be able.
Very good. Nonetheless, guys, you've done a fantastic job. And I think you're exemplars in terms of like clients in the community. And I think like we discussed and touched on at the start in terms of your constant commitment to showing up, learning, grabbing all of the information you can and implementing it. I look at that as the biggest like precursor to why your business is doing what you are doing. Follow the process, show up as much as you physically can, implement rapidly, urgently, yesterday, as per Eddie's description earlier. Get frustrated if it's not done yesterday, and just continue that over and over and over again. And I think the other thing that is interesting is like in this 30K to 100K a month, there's often, and I'd encourage you guys just to be really aware of it. There's often like a false sense of like ego that can be developed with like, oh, I'm pretty good. Oh yeah, I've got this. You know what I mean? And just checking that and be like.
And then you really learn, no, just shut the fuck up. It's commitment. Like it's just showing up. Like 90% of this is just showing up. You know, like it's somebody told me this. It's a bacon and egg conversation. You know, the chicken bowl, but the pig's committed.
That's fantastic. I'm going to borrow that completely. That is so good. I love it. That's excellent. That's excellent. Be the bacon. On that note, I think that's fantastic, guys. I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope you've also taken 2 or 3 key points that you can capture, implement, and use in your businesses, as well as just like the way you think about the future. I think the overarching thing that is very important just to drive home is what you're building the business for, and continue with that in mind. You know, and when things come up in the journey, does that align with me having more time and having more cash flow? You know, does this decision align with that? It's always a very helpful filter to kind of put all of your decisions through before you go ahead and do that thing, right?
Yes. And I would say something that I'm actually going to be, I think it's from Alex Hermosi, but it's like simple, scale, fancy, fail. So that's my view on it.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Avoid the bells and whistles.
Appreciate you guys heaps. All right, let's continue crushing it. And I look forward to seeing you at the event and continuing to drive forward. All right.
Thanks, guys.